Hey guys, it's your favorite average middle-aged American, and I'm back with another reaction video. This one is on Italy. This is going to be 50 travel tips for first-timers to Italy. So I'm going to need your input on this one. Let me know what she's right about, what she's not right about, and any additional tips that you may have. I understand that Italy is one of the most beautiful countries in the world, and we are definitely going to go. When? I don't know. As you know, we're going to see all of Europe somehow, some way, someday. I think our first trip is going to be more sooner than later. We've got to at least pop over there and check out a few things. So, anyway, the goal is to learn as much as we can about Europe and the rest of the world, learn about other countries and other cultures before we start doing some international traveling. Going to be going into retirement and during retirement, God willing, and hopefully everything going well with health and finances and all that. So anyway, and put down in the comments section there what you agree with, what you don't agree with, and what you want to add for travel tips for Italy. Appreciate all you guys. Enough jibber jabber. Let's see what she has to say.
If you are visiting Italy for the first time this year, make sure you watch this video because in it, I'll be sharing all my best tips and tricks for first-timers. Hi, I'm Christina from happytowonder.com, and Italy is honestly one of my favorite countries in the world. And after visiting over a dozen times in the past decade, I can honestly say I've learned a lot about all the things that you should do there and also all the things that you shouldn't do there. So in this video, I'm going to be sharing all my best tips and tricks specifically geared towards first-timers. So let's start.
Yeah, guys, now I forgot to mention this. You know, reaction videos, my entire channel is basically based on reaction videos, learning about the rest of the world. And that would not be possible if content creators didn't allow that to happen. So the ones that do, you know, visit their channel, see what else they have to say, see what other videos they have, support them, because without, you know, people like that, I wouldn't be able to do what I do. So show them some love and see what else they have. You know, if you liked any part of this video, then the chances are they've got other videos you'll like too. Help reinforce why they should allow people to react to their videos. Thanks.
Travel planning tips. So tip number one is to definitely expand your Italy itinerary beyond just the most famous must-sees. With 20 different regions, there are so many amazing places in Italy to visit, and I promise some of them are places that you haven't even heard of. Day trips or side trips to areas nearby so that you have a mix of both hidden gems and famous attractions. Social and popular media over the years have made certain destinations kind of the top of everyone and their mom's bucket list. So places like Rome, Florence, Venice, Pisa, Cinque Terre, all of those are really famous destinations that everybody's flocking to. But the truth is there's a ton of really cool places in and around those regions that you should also be exploring. So what I would suggest you do is pick some of these famous places and then also add on some. Now, in terms of when to visit, I would say try your best to avoid visiting in the thick of summer, meaning from July to August. And the reason I say that is not just because everybody is trying to visit Italy in that time, so the prices are really high, there's lots of crowds. Also, in many cases, it can get unbearably hot as well. So I would say try your best to time your visit for maybe the off-season or shoulder season. Spring and fall are both amazing times to be visiting Italy, and also some Italian cities are just incredible to visit in the winter, just because there's a fraction of the crowds and you can kind of actually feel like you enjoy the city and have it to yourself, which is very rare and would honestly never happen if you went in the summer. All right, so now let's move on to Italy travel tips for.
How cold is it? How cold does it get for you guys in the winter? I hate cold weather. I hate it. I can't stand it. But a lot of it has to do with humidity. So what's your humidity like in Italy? You know, I went to the Grand Canyon, and this is years back, and there was snow on the ground, and it was cold, and I was wearing shorts. And people kind of thought I was nuts, but there was no humidity, so it was like different. Even though it was only like 30 or 40 degrees Fahrenheit, it wasn't that bone-chilling cold that you get when it's wet and humid and cold. Does that make any sense? So tell me what the weather's like in Italy. I don't mind cold. I just don't like humid and cold. And what's the best time? You know, spring and fall, is that the best time? Is it really that dramatic of a difference for tourism, you know, in the summer? Let me know. If you know, let me know.
transport and getting around. So first things first, I would say try to go with public transport as much as possible. You don't necessarily need to rent a car unless you're planning on visiting a lot of smaller villages or more remote natural areas. To be honest, if you're just going from city to city, odds are you can just do that with trains and buses, and it'll save you a lot of stress because driving in Italy is very, very stressful and is not for the faint of heart. If you do end up renting a car though, there are a few must-knows. So first off, be sure to rent a really small car, the smallest car you possibly can, just because in a lot of these smaller villages, their roads are really narrow and you don't want to get stuck. Trust me, it happens. Also be sure to get something called a vignette if you're driving into some neighboring countries. So for example, if you're driving in Austria or Switzerland, you need to buy a vignette, which is a special sticker that you stick on your car that gives you the right to use motorways in those countries. Another thing to keep in mind is you should be avoiding, I don't want to butcher the pronunciation, so this, and these are basically zones in busy cities where you can get fined for driving because they limit the amount of vehicles or the times that you can drive through those zones. Now, if you plan on going by public transport, a few important things that you should know include, first of all, when you're traveling by bus, a lot of the time in Italy, they don't actually sell tickets on the bus, so you have to make sure that you have tickets before you get on. And usually where you can go buy that is the tobacco shop, or sometimes newspaper stands will also have them. Usually you can also use those tickets for the metro as well. So if there's ever any kind of...
Wait a minute. You buy bus tickets at the tobacco shop? The tobacco, like cigarettes and cigars? Can you just do it on your phone? I don't know when this video was made, but is that possible now? I know that you can do some stuff like that with trains. Can you do that with buses? And can you just buy like a 2-week bus ticket pass or something? Or a 2-week public transportation pass or something like that? Let me know. So this video is all about tips. All about those crazy middle-aged average Americans that are waddling their way through Italy, trying to see it all in 1/10 of the time that they should be seeing it. So give me your tips.
A deal where you can get a packet of multiple for a discount, be sure to get one of those because you'll probably get through them. Another thing is you should always be making sure to buy your train tickets in advance as well. Honestly, Italian train stations are one of the most chaotic places in the universe. So I would advise to not go to the station and buy your ticket. Try to buy it in advance so that you at least have eliminated that one stressor. And so you have your ticket ready once you get there. On that note, once you get to the station, oftentimes you'll find that the platform hasn't actually been announced yet. And that's because in larger cities, sometimes they won't actually know the train platform that you'll be on until the train arrives. So you'll often see a lot of people kind of standing in the main concourse area looking up at the signs. And that's because they're just waiting for the platform to be announced. So don't be stressed out if you get to the station and they haven't announced your platform yet. Everyone else is also in the same boat. So just wait for the number to come up and then run with everyone else. Something else to keep in mind though before you board the train is if you have a ticket, especially if it's like a physical ticket, you need to make sure you validate that ticket as well before you get on the train. Having a ticket isn't enough. You also have to make sure it's properly validated. Now with digital tickets, it's a lot easier. You don't have to worry about that. But if you have a physical ticket, make sure you get it stamped if there's a machine for you to stamp it, just because if a ticket controller comes by and the ticket's not validated, they don't actually consider it to be a valid ticket, so you can still get fined even if you've paid for it. Now let's cover some culture and etiquette tips for Italy. First off, try to remember that there's tremendous cultural diversity within Italy. Italy can look very different depending on where you're going.
Wow.
And in fact, if you're looking at northern and southern, in many ways, they are totally worlds apart. So just keep in mind that there's a ton of regional diversity and try to forget any stereotypes of the country that you might have seen in popular media. Another important thing is to learn how to say hello and thank you. Luckily, Italian is a very pretty language, and honestly, you've probably heard hello and thank you in the past. So to say good morning is buongiorno, which I'm sure you've heard before. And in the evening, if you're saying hello, it's buonasera. Of course, to say thank you, a very simple grazie will suffice. Another important etiquette tip is to remember to cover up when you're visiting churches. Not only is this just more polite, a lot of churches will actually actively turn you away if you don't have your shoulders and your knees covered. So if you're visiting in the summer, just make sure you have a scarf with you so that you can drape it over your shoulders, and also have at least one skirt or one pair of pants that extends past your knee. Another thing to note is you...
Wow, what a tip that is. I didn't know that. So if you're wearing shorts and a t-shirt, you cannot enter a church as a tourist? Not during service or anything. That would just be obscene. But during just to wander around a church when it's not in service? Let me know if that's accurate. Man, I wear shorts everywhere. I have beautiful calves, and I have to show them off. Seriously, let me know. I hate pants. I hate wearing pants. Especially if I'm doing a lot of walking. And if it's literally just covering your knees, I wonder if I could just wear like some kind of Velcro cloth, almost like a kilt or something. If I could just put it on to go into the church. Let me know. Or is it just for women? I'm a little confused. I don't usually bare my shoulders, so that's not a problem. But my knees like to breathe. Let me know.
You should not be tipping by North American standards when you're in Italy. Oftentimes in restaurants, there's already a service and cover charge included in the bill. And even if you are to tip, most of the time it's going to be less than 10%. It's not going to be as extravagant as you would tip in North America, and they definitely don't expect it, so don't feel obligated. That said, you should definitely
Now, is it insulting? You know, I went to a very high-end dinner thing once, and it was you didn't even have a way to tip. It was literally like an insult to try to tip. So let me know about that. I generally am a pretty good tipper. You give me good service, you're going to get a good tip. And when I mean a good tip, I mean a good tip. If it's an expensive bill, you're getting probably 20%. If it's an inexpensive bill, you could get 30 or 40%. So, and that's just because it's the same amount of work. It's not your problem that the food's cheap or we didn't order a ton of alcohol. So let me know. Definitely don't want to insult anybody, but I don't mind tipping for good service.
prepare for slower service than you're used to. Servers in Italy tend to take their time, and it's a really nice thing.
Never mind. I'm kidding. Let me know.
In my opinion, they're just not trying to rush you, not bother you, and kind of let you enjoy your evening, which I think is really great. But if you're waiting for them to bring you the bill, that bill is never going to come. So make sure you're the one that asks the server for the bill if you're wanting to make a move. Now let's move on to some Italy tips for attractions. So first things first, prepare yourself for scaffolding and restorations. Now, Italy is an incredible country, but on the other side of it being super historic, it's also really old, and a lot of the monuments in Italy require active restoration. So don't be surprised if there's a place or a specific attraction that you've been wanting to see forever and you show up and it's just covered in scaffolding or closed for some reason because of restoration works. This is super common. It happens on every trip, and there's not really anything you can do about it, but just have that expectation in mind and don't cry like I did when I went to the Trevi Fountain and it looked like this. Another tip is to wake up at sunrise to see the most popular attractions. Of course, this is more of a tip for peak season, but honestly, when you're visiting some super busy tourist destinations in Italy, the only time you're ever going to see it without a million people is if you wake up for sunrise. And I know that sounds unbearable, but trust me, it is worth every second of missed sleep, because then you can feel like the city is yours and you're really getting a chance to appreciate it without all the people. Another tip is to make sure you book tickets in advance for popular attractions. Now, not only is this going to save you time so that you don't have to go line up for tickets on the day of, sometimes in peak season, the most popular attractions can actually sell out, and you don't want to be that person that everyone in the group is mad at because you didn't book tickets in advance. Now, another sneaky trick that I have for avoiding crowds in Italy is showing up to an attraction just before it closes. This is a trick that I've personally used at the Vatican museums, and I actually got to have the place pretty much to myself just by showing up an hour before it closed. Granted, an hour is not a ton of time, so I did kind of speed through it, but oftentimes if you show up just before it closes, there will be way fewer crowds than even if you showed up first thing in the morning, because everyone thinks to show up first thing in the morning. But now you know, if you go just before they close, oftentimes the crowds will already be gone by then too. Depending on where you're going, you should also be sure to look into sunrise or after hours tours as well. In a lot of the more touristy cities in Italy, like Rome for instance, they're starting to do things like sunrise and after hours tours.
So are these tour guides, are these government employees, or are they like tour guide companies that have a deal with each venue or each attraction? Let me know. Curious. I mean, do you have to price shop and all that, figure out, look who's got the best reviews and that kind of stuff?
Which allows you to visit certain attractions before they open to the public or after they're closed to the public. Of course, this often comes at an extra cost, but it is a very special experience to splurge on, and definitely one that I'd recommend. A few years ago, I did a sunrise tour around Venice, and it was honestly just the most incredible thing. Being able to see all the piazzas without a million people in them was worth every penny. Lastly, if you plan to do a lot of paid attractions during your visit, be sure to look into whether or not you're...
That guy's got a butt but no head. That's interesting. What happened to his head?
City offers a city sightseeing card or an attractions pass or anything like that. Usually with these cards, you'll pay one set price and then you'll get access to most of the tourist attractions in a city. And I think that's a really great way to save money if you're planning on visiting a bunch of these attractions. I used one of these in Verona and it saved me so much money, and it was just really nice to be able to use one pass and get into a bunch of places. And it really helped me seek out more hidden gems for sure. Now let's move on to tips for when you arrive to Italy. So the first is to beware of pickpockets. I do have a full video about how to avoid pickpockets in Europe if you want to learn more more about the common scams and techniques, but you should really just know that
I carry my wallet in my front left pocket. I know, you were curious. So if I get pickpocketed, you're getting real personal real fast. It seems to be a real problem with all the big cities, right? With the tourists, because they're all, looking around and all this, and then they get ripped off. So I guess, women, what do you guys do? You just use one of those little cross chest purses, and it's more pickpocketing than just like strong arm robbery, right? They don't just snatch purses and run as much as they just do a bump and pull or whatever. Let me know. Yeah, if you're in my front left pocket, we got a problem. I don't care what you look like.
pickpocketing is a very common occurrence in Italy, especially in touristy cities, because let's face it, where there's a lot of tourists, there's a lot of wallets to be taken and a lot of easy targets. I was actually pickpocketed in Rome during my first backpacking trip, so
I got some sleep. I haven't slept well in a month. My cat's sick and got so much going on, so much stress, blah, blah, blah. I get 2 to 3 hours of sleep a night, maybe 4 on a good night. Last night I got like 6 or 7. It was just, I woke up like 5 times, but still, I got out of bed late this morning. I'm in a good mood. I'm in a really good mood. I know. I know. I don't look like a guy who's normally in a good mood. You got to get to know me. I'm an introvert. But once you get to know me, then you'll know. I'm a little wacky.
So I know how it feels. So just be extra vigilant when you're in super crowded places like train stations or tourist attractions. Besides just being a little bit more aware, you should also take care to learn about some of the common scams that you'll find in Italy. So some really big ones include the friendship bracelets. There's often in touristy areas, like in the main square in Milan, for instance, there's guys who are there with friendship bracelets and they'll try to lure you over and tie it on your wrist and then demand that you pay for it. If you see these guys or they offer you a friendship bracelet, even if they say it's free, be sure to walk away and get away as soon as possible, because sometimes they can be quite forceful. On a similar note, oftentimes you'll find people in main squares giving away roses, and they'll say it's free, they'll say it's a welcome gift, but then they'll turn back around and ask you for a donation. Or it's really funny, sometimes they'll give a free rose to the lady in a couple and then come back and ask the man to pay for it, which is very fun to observe. Now, honestly, apart from that kind of petty theft, you don't have to worry too much safety-wise when you're in Italy. It's really just those opportunistic crimes that you have to look out for. I've never felt in danger in terms of violent crime when I'm in Italy, so.
How disgusting is that? This. What do you do for a living? Oh, I con tourist out of, $5 a pop by giving their girlfriend or their wife, a rose. Or I dress up like a trademark superhero, and get aggressive enough to take a picture with somebody and then demand a tip. Can you imagine waking up every morning and that's your life? Yeah, it pisses me off. I hate people like that. It disgusts me. And it's big in the Caribbean too. You can't walk around in the Caribbean without being just attacked, in a lot of places. I just don't, if I wanted it, I would come up to you and ask for it.
Now, another thing to not be weirded out by is oftentimes when you check into a hotel or an accommodation, they will take your passport and make a copy of it. Don't worry, this isn't a scam. This is just a legal obligation that they have to fulfill. So if they take your passport, don't worry, you will get it back and they're not trying to steal it. Similarly, you'll often be asked to pay a tourist tax when you arrive. This can range from €3 to €5 per night per person, depending on where you're staying. Again, this is not a scam. This is another legal obligation that the accommodation has to fulfill. And usually it does have to be paid in person, which is why it's not included in the price that you pay up front if you're booking online. Now, another tip is that when you get to Italy, you should be getting some cash out.
Why does it have to be paid in cash? That's pretty sketchy. Why doesn't it just on the hotel bill? In America, we have all kinds of tourist taxes and, well, they're not really tourist taxes, they're hotel taxes, but it's obviously for tourists mostly. It's just part of your bill. You know, you got sales tax and I forgot what they call it. Call it a hotel tax, I guess. Resort fee for, the spa and the swimming pool and all that. And it's all line listed on your invoice. How about this cash thing?
out. So not only is this good for smaller purchases like gelato, you should also make sure you have cash because a lot of public restrooms in Italy these days actually require you to pay. So this is a really small fee, usually it's like 50 cents or €1, but it's still good to have coins just in case for when these emergencies pop up. Otherwise, just make sure you do your business before you leave a museum or a restaurant so that you don't get caught out in emergency situations, because public bathrooms in Italy I found are not as common as you might think. Now, another random bathroom tip is to not be alarmed if you can't find the flush in the washroom. Obviously, this depends on where you are, but from my own personal experience, I've noticed sometimes the flush is a standard button on the wall, sometimes it's a little pulley thing, sometimes it's a circular button just detached from the toilet altogether on the other side of the wall, sometimes it's a pedal on the floor. It's very inconsistent, but before you panic, just be sure to look around and see if there's anything that's pressable, and odds are that's gonna be the flush. All right, now that we've spoken in depth about toilets, it's time to talk about food and drink tips for Italy, because obviously we're talking about Italy, so we do need a special section just for the food and drink. Now, the first tip is to make sure you go to restaurants that have Italian menus. If a restaurant that you're going to has their menu in English, odds are they're catering more to tourists than to locals, and that's already a red flag right there. Another red flag is if there's a guy out front trying to lure you to come into the restaurant, that's probably not a good sign. And the final nail in the coffin is if there are photos on the menu, be sure to run, because that's likely a sign that it's not an authentic restaurant and they're probably going to serve you mediocre food for inflated prices. Another rule of thumb is to try to dine away from tourist attractions. I mean, this isn't always true, but for the most part, if you're in a really busy touristy place and you see a restaurant there that has an incredible view or anything that says like, oh, we've got free Wi-Fi or tourist menus, odds are they're also catering to tourists, so it's not necessarily going to be the most amazing food that you've ever had in your life. If you just walk a few blocks away from the main tourist attractions, you'll tend to find way better restaurants for way better value.
No, is that true? I mean, because it seems to me that if you've got an amazing view and all that, and it's an upscale restaurant, that I mean, I understand what they're saying is that if they're catering towards American, the food might be more Americanized and that kind of thing. And if you want authentic flavor and all that, go somewhere else. But it doesn't mean that it's not good food, right? I mean, I guess the idea, the tip has always been when you're visiting another country is to look to where the locals are. If everybody inside the place is American and it's not a sports bar, then chances are it's a tourist place. I mean, that's pretty much anywhere. Do you guys take American Express credit cards? I understand it's an American credit card, but you know, the biggest purchase ever was an Asian buying some $50 million teacup or something. I'm just curious if you take it. The reason I ask is they have the absolute best customer satisfaction. You know, if you do get ripped off or something, you can, they're quick to reverse charges. Let me know. If you know, let me know.
So definitely keep that in mind. Another important food tip is to order based on the regional specialties of wherever you are. We as North Americans have a certain vision of what Italian food is. We think it's just pizza and pasta, but the truth is there's a lot of regional diversity in Italy. So depending on where you are, there's different regional specialties. So before you order pizza and pasta everywhere you go, try to look into if that area has any special regional dishes that you
Was that like a cordon bleu? What was that? Oh, that was I used to, what was that? Chicken? I don't know. What was the deal with the black noodles? Chicken parmigiana. Was that chicken parmigiana? And why are these noodles black? I mean, who thinks that looks good? Now, I'm all about Italian food. Don't get me wrong. I'll eat some chicken parm. My wife likes eggplant parmesan, I think. Is that just American stuff? I think chicken Alfredo, that's American, right? You guys don't mix chicken with Alfredo pasta with Alfredo sauce. That's like a big no-no, right? What else does she get? I like white pizza. Eggplant parmesan. What is the other thing? Chicken parmesan. I love. I can't remember.
Depending on where you are, there's different regional specialties. So before you order pizza and pasta everywhere you go, try to look into if
that's me right there. All right, so that looks like breaded chicken with mozzarella And bacon or ham. That's almost like a cordon bleu. Yeah, I'm all about that.
That area has any special regional dishes that you should try. On a similar note, don't go to Italy expecting to find Americanized Italian classics on the menu. So what I realized the hard way was actually a lot of the dishes that we grew up in North America thinking are Italian aren't actually a thing over there. So things like spaghetti and meatballs are not an authentic Italian dish. Chicken fettuccine alfredo, not a thing either. Garlic bread, also not really a thing. So
what? Well, I don't eat garlic. I mean, I eat garlic bread, but I don't eat it with Italian food. Well, I guess I do eat it with spaghetti. Yeah, we do. Actually, we eat cheesy bread. We don't eat pasta very often. But when we do, we have a complete carb overload. We do breadsticks with Alfredo sauce. Chicken parm comes with spaghetti. Not a big deal. Usually the Italians, the meatballs are just like one big meatball, right? Like the size of a baseball. Not a bunch of little stuff. I like all Italian food, I think. Or most of it. I'm not going to get into squid and all that. Calamari and no. No, no, no.
So when you're over there, don't look for those on the menu. And if you see them on the menu, then run because it's obviously a sign that they're catering to tourists more than to locals. Now, another important thing is to kind of understand the structure of an Italian menu because I think for first-time visitors, it can be a little bit confusing. So when you see the word menu in Italy, actually this often refers to a set meal. So when you see the word menu and it gives a price, basically that's saying, oh, this is a 3-course meal combo and it'll cost this much. Now, when you're looking at the actual physical menu with a list of dishes, usually it's separated into a few different categories. So the first page will usually be antipasto. So these are appetizers like cured meats, cheeses, etc. Something that you have before the main meal to kind of whet your appetite. And then there's the primi course, which is a first course. And this will usually be something carby like risotto or pasta. And then there's the secondi, which is usually a meat-based dish. And then there's the contorni, which are side dishes like roasted vegetables. And finally, dolci, obviously it's desserts. Now, if you're trying to have an indulgent 4-course meal, you would follow things in that order. But practically speaking, it's completely normal to just have a primi and not a secondi. You don't have to feel pressured to have a 4-course meal every time. Now, another important thing is to not expect all-day service at restaurants. In North America, we're very used to when a restaurant is open, they will stay open for the entire day. But actually in Italy, it's very common for restaurants to close up shop between lunchtime and dinner time so that they have some time to rest and also prep for dinner. In bigger cities, you will probably not have trouble finding at least one place that's open, but a lot of restaurants will not stay open continuously during that time. Another important thing is to make reservations if you can. If you have your heart set on a specific restaurant, then it's definitely a must, especially if it's a popular place, because they don't usually reserve that many spots for walk-ins. Another thing to take note of is the fact that prices can actually be higher if you are sitting down to have it, as opposed to if you're taking it away or if you're having it at the bar. So if there's 2 columns with different prices, you'll know that one price is for if you're standing at the bar and one price is for if you're sitting down. On that note, you should definitely make sure to familiarize yourself with Italian coffee culture.
I mean, that makes sense because it's costing them money, you know. You don't have a lot of space. You know, the density is it's quite dense, so you're taking up time. The odd part of that is that you know, she says, you know, basically the waiters and the owners and whatever take their time serving you and draw it out. You got to ask for the check and all that. It seems like you'd be able to have more people being able to sit down if you didn't draw out an hour dinner into 2 hours. And there's a big difference between pushing people out the door and making service quick enough that, you know, it frees up a table. That's confusing to me. You're willing to charge more for service, but you also take your time so that it's harder to get a reservation and it's harder to get more customers. It's interesting.
As well before you go, because I feel like Italian cafe culture is so interesting and it's also very different to what we're used to. So first things first, as I mentioned before, most people will actually drink their coffee at the bar and it'll be a very quick activity. They'll order one cafe, which is an espresso shot, slurp it down and then leave. And to getting a takeaway coffee in a cup to slurp throughout the day is not really a common thing over there. So yeah, it's very much like a quick walk-in, slurp your espresso and get out kind of affair. On that note, cappuccinos are more or less considered a breakfast drink over there. So you'll tend to have it in the morning and not really after lunch. And this is kind of considered a faux pas in a lot of cases. A lot of people don't like to get cappuccinos after 11 a.m., especially not after a heavy meal, because they think the milk kind of curdles in your stomach. And no one's gonna stop you, but it's just not really commonly done. Another thing to keep in mind is that lattes don't really exist in Italy. So if you order a latte, you will literally get a cup of milk, because that's what latte means in Italian. If you're looking for coffee with milk, you get a cafe macchiato, but it's not going to be the same sort of latte that you would typically get from Starbucks.
I know you're going to find this hard to believe. In my entire life, I've never drank a cup of coffee. I can't. I can't even smell. I don't even like coffee ice cream. I don't know. I mean, is it really about the taste, or is it more about the caffeine? Let me know. Let me know. Let me know you're honest. Honestly, why do you drink coffee? Is it like smoking? I mean, nobody says that smoking tastes good, but it gives them a little buzz, or helps them with the little craving that they have, or and then obviously that becomes an addiction. I don't smoke either. I mean, I get it. And a lot of it may just be habit. For me, it's Diet Coke. That's my coffee. Diet Coke, Coke Zero, whatever. Let me know. I'm curious. To me, it just doesn't taste good. Although I don't like the taste of beer either. So actually, there's hardly any alcohol that tastes good. So is it more about the effect, or is it more about the taste for you if you're a coffee drinker?
Or anything like that. Now, if you're feeling really jittery from all that caffeine and you feel like you need to hydrate yourself, a really good thing is that there's a lot of free water fountains scattered around Italian cities. So if you bring a reusable water bottle, you can easily fill up.
Those are for drinking, like literally in a fountain. You can drink. I mean, that goes through a filtration system of some kind and reverse osmosis and all kinds of stuff to actually make it drinkable water, no matter whoever throws whatever in the fountain. I mean, you got dirty coins and everything in there. Or does that just come in like straight from the city? Is it recycling through the fountain itself, or is it going back to the city and then coming back again? Let me know. Curious, because I don't know that I'd be sticking my water bottle up to that thing.
Up in public places for free, and you don't have to pay for water. That said, if you're at a restaurant, water is very rarely free. So if you sit down and the server asks you, oh, do you want water? Just know that that water is going to cost you. Luckily, it's not really that high of a cost. Usually a bottle of water will cost you between 2 to 3 euros for a big bottle. Just know that asking for tap water is not really common. And in some cases, they might actually think it's kind of rude. So just keep that in mind. And be sure to specify if you want still or sparkling as well. Another thing you need to try when you're in Italy is something called aperitivo. So this is usually a pre-dinner ritual where you grab a drink, like an Aperol Spritz or something, and a few nibbles. And this is just kind of a way to whet your appetite in advance of dinner. It's a really lovely tradition. It's kind of like an Italian happy hour. And depending on where you go, in a lot of places, they'll give you free snacks when you buy a drink. Or if you're really lucky and you seek out specific places, they'll even have a full buffet spread when you buy a drink, which is really great. And last but not least, it's very, very important. But when you're looking,
you charge me for water, but then if I order a 6 or 7 or 8 euro drink, then you're going to give me a buffet to eat from? I'm so confused. $3 for water, three euros for water, but 8 euros for a drink and all you can eat. Interesting.
looking for gelato, be sure to avoid places that look like this, which have really colorful gelato that stacks super high with a bunch of decorations. Usually this is a sign that it's not high quality gelato, just because, you know, there's a lot of artificial coloring, and when it's stacked that high, it means that it's not super fresh, and it's also probably not being kept at the right temperature. In contrast, if you're looking for high quality gelato, what you should be looking for are these metal tins, usually with a lid, because that shows that they're keeping the temperature under control. And in terms of color, you should be looking for things that have a really natural color, so things that are quite pale and not at all like the radioactive colors that you can often see in super touristy areas. All right, I hope this.
What is gelato? Is it just like is that like sherbet, kind of? Like a cross between a milkshake and something tart and ice cream? Is that kind of what it is, all mixed together? Because it looked like it was kind of runny and not as dense as ice cream. Let me know. Yes, I'll try it. I don't care. I'll try it. I'll try just about anything once, as long as it's not a squid or an octopus. Well, there you go, guys. 50 tips for Italy. What do you think about those tips? I think some of them are pretty good. You know, some of them apply to any country you go to, and some of them might be a little more specific, like the coffee stuff, which doesn't really affect me. But my wife drinks coffee. She loves coffee. Can't wait. I can't wait. I mean, the place is beautiful. You know, all of Europe. I mean, every country seems to have some beauty to it, or a lot of beauty to it. You know, I don't think you can go wrong, no matter where you end up, unless unless you're in Russia wearing an American T-shirt or something. That might not go over that great right now, but generally speaking, Italy, France, Spain, Portugal, Germany, England, Scotland, Ireland. Seems like it's all beautiful. Can't wait. Let me know your tips. Let me know what she was right about. Let me know what she was wrong about. And your tips for Italy. I appreciate all of you guys. I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Thanks for checking out my video. I hope you enjoyed it. Can you believe that we now have over 1,000 subscribers and over 100 videos in our YouTube library? Me neither. It's been less than a year and this channel has grown so rapidly. What's more important than the number of subscribers is the quality of subscribers. Our subscribers are knowledgeable and generous with their time. They teach us about their country and their culture from their firsthand experiences. See, over 95% of my subscribers live outside of the United States. So we're getting information firsthand. If you haven't subscribed already, hit that button. I think you'll enjoy it and it doesn't cost you anything. If you'd like to see other videos similar to this one on the same country, click here. If you'd like to see some videos on some other countries in Europe, click there. Want to see some of the most beautiful castles and cathedrals in the world? They're over here. Want to check out the United States? We're down here. I appreciate you, and I will see you on the next one. Take care.